And why not run away? I don't see how we can keep on like this. And not for my sake I see that you suffer. Yes, run away, and become your mistress, she said angrily. Anna, he said, with reproachful tenderness. Yes, she went on, become your mistress, and complete the ruin of. Again she would have said my son, but she could not utter that word. Vronsky could not understand how she, with her strong and truthful nature, could endure this state of deceit, and not long to get out of it. But he did not suspect that the chief cause of it was the word _son_, which she could not bring herself to pronounce. When she thought of her son, and his future attitude to his mother, who had abandoned his father, she felt such terror at what she had done, that she could not face it, but, like a woman, could only try to comfort herself with lying assurances that everything would remain as it always had been, and that it was possible to forget the fearful question of how it would be with her son. I beg you, I entreat you, she said suddenly, taking his hand, and speaking in quite a different tone, sincere and tender, never speak to me of that. But, Anna. Never. Leave it to me. I know all the baseness, all the horror of my position, but it's not so easy to arrange as you think. And leave it to me, and do what I say. Never speak to me of it. Do you promise me? No, no, promise. I promise everything, but I can't be at peace, especially after what you have told me. I can't be at peace, when you can't be at peace. She repeated. Yes, I am worried sometimes, but that will pass, if you will never talk about this. When you talk about it, it's only then it worries me. I don't understand, he said. I know, she interrupted him, how hard it is for your truthful nature to lie, and I grieve for you. I often think that you have ruined your whole life for me. I was just thinking the very same thing, he said. How could you sacrifice everything for my sake? I can't forgive myself that you're unhappy. I unhappy? She said, coming closer to him, and looking at him with an ecstatic smile of love. I am like a hungry man who has been given food. He may be cold, and dressed in rags, and ashamed, but he is not unhappy. I unhappy? No, this is my unhappiness. She could hear the sound of her son's voice coming towards them, and glancing swiftly round the terrace, she got up impulsively. Her eyes glowed with the fire he knew so well. With a rapid movement she raised her lovely hands, covered with rings, took his head, looked a long look into his face, and, putting up her face with smiling, parted lips, swiftly kissed his mouth and both eyes, and pushed him away. She would have gone, but he held her back. When? He murmured in a whisper, gazing in ecstasy at her. Tonight, at 1 o'clock, she whispered, and, with a heavy sigh, she walked with her light, swift step to meet her son. Seriosha had been caught by the rain in the big garden, and he and his nurse had taken shelter in an arbor. Well, au revoir, she said to Vronsky. I must soon be getting ready for the races. Betsy promised to fetch me. Vronsky, looking at his watch, went away hurriedly. Chapter 24. When Vronsky looked at his watch on the Karenin's balcony, he was so greatly agitated and lost in his thoughts that he saw the figures on the watch's face, but could not take in what time it was. He came out onto the high road and walked, picking his way carefully through the mud, to his carriage. He was so completely absorbed in his feeling for Anna, that he did not even think what o'clock it was, and whether he had time to go to Bryansky's. He had left him, as often happens, only the external faculty of memory, that points out each step one has to take, one after the other. He went up to his coachman, who was dozing on the box in the shadow, already lengthening, of a thick lime tree. He admired the shifting clouds of midges circling over the hot horses, and, waking the coachman, he jumped into the carriage, and told him to drive to Bryansky's. It was only after driving nearly 5 miles that he had sufficiently recovered himself to look at his watch, and realize that it was 5:30, and he was late. There were several races fixed for that day, the mounted guards race, then the officers' mile-and-a-half race, then the 3-mile race, and then the race for which he was entered. He could still be in time for his race, but if he went to Bryansky's he could only just be in time, and he would arrive when the whole of the court would be in their places. That would be a pity. But he had promised Bryansky to come, and so he decided to drive on, telling the coachman not to spare the horses. He reached Bryansky's, spent 5 minutes there, and galloped back. This rapid drive calmed him. All that was painful in his relations with Anna, all the feeling of indefiniteness left by their conversation, had slipped out of his mind. He was thinking now with pleasure and excitement of the race, of his being anyhow, in time, and now and then the thought of the blissful interview awaiting him that night flashed across his imagination like a flaming light. The excitement of the approaching race gained upon him as he drove further and further into the atmosphere of the races, overtaking carriages driving up from the summer villas or out of Petersburg. At his quarters no one was left at home, all were at the races, and his valet was looking out for him at the gate. While he was changing his clothes, his valet told him that the second race had begun already, that a lot of gentlemen had been to ask for him, and a boy had twice run up from the stables. Dressing without hurry, he never hurried himself, and never lost his self-possession, Vronsky drove to the sheds. From the sheds he could see a perfect sea of carriages, and people on foot, soldiers surrounding the race course, and pavilions swarming with people. The second race was apparently going on, for just as he went into the sheds he heard a bell ringing. Going towards the stable, he met the white-legged chestnut, Mahotin's gladiator, being led to the racecourse in a blue forage horsecloth, with what looked like huge ears edged with blue.